Hey, this is Chris. I'm a registered nurse and ordained minister, and I specialize in end-of-life care. When my dad started on hospice, he was still driving his car. He was taking my mom out to eat. He was still going to church. In fact, he preached for me at times up until about 2 months before he passed. He was still seeing doctors when he needed to. He didn't need to take any narcotics like morphine or anything like that. And he still had a lot of life to live, but he also had a terminal condition that wasn't going to get any better and was going to cut his days short. This video is going to be about my dad's hospice journey and how it impacted him and our family as he went into his sunset. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to share a little story about my 5-year-old granddaughter, his great-granddaughter, and a moment my dad and her had right before he passed. So stay tuned. Let's build some beautiful sunsets together.
Welcome to Pastor Chris RN. Life is a journey. May it end in a beautiful sunset. Pastor Chris loves to share his knowledge to make that possible.
I often get asked this question: why was your dad on hospice care so long before his death? He was on hospice for about 6 months before he died. And I think there's a real big misconception about hospice care and what it is. And I want to just correct a little bit of that, and then also talk about what my dad's experience was and our experience was with him on hospice care. Most people think about hospice to be about death and dying. What hospice really is about is life and living. Hospice is about helping those with a terminal illness make the absolute most of their life, make the best days possible until their life comes to an end. My dad had congestive heart failure and chronic kidney disease. His body was simply breaking down due to age. He did not want to do dialysis, even though that was recommended to him. He already had triple bypass heart surgery, replacement valves. He had a pacemaker. He faced a number of issues related to his heart, and there was nothing more doctors could do to improve his health condition. It was hard for him at first just to accept that. And it was hard for my mom and for me and my brother and our families to come to grips with the fact that there just wasn't a lot more to be done for my dad. He was very functional when he began on hospice, and he did a lot of things, and most people, unless he told them, wouldn't even know he was on hospice care. And because of all the privacy laws and everything, nobody on the hospice team was going to share with anybody in the public that he was on hospice. So it was just something personal for him, and he shared with that fact with whoever he wanted to share it with. He could have gone on living and just waiting for hospice until his health declined so much that he was bedbound. But he chose to partner with hospice to make the most of his life and to make the highest quality of life possible. He chose to partner with hospice to make for the highest quality of life possible in the days that he had left. My dad went to church, and he ate out with my mom at restaurants. He met with people. He would spend hours and hours writing. His life wasn't over being on hospice. He wanted living as best as his health would allow. The hospice team encouraged him to live. They made sure he had the right medication. They made sure he had the right medical equipment when he needed it. They helped him manage his health so he didn't have to spend his days in the doctor's office or at the emergency room or in the hospital. And there was a lot more to hospice than that. The chaplain became a good friend of my dad, and they visited and shared their common faith in Jesus Christ and encouraged one another. The social worker came and made sure the whole family was okay in the face of his health decline. And that was great because I've been a hospice nurse. I was so used to seeing this stuff, but this was my dad. And having that social worker and the nurses and everybody else check in on me meant a lot to me at the time. To know that people were watching out for my dad and his family. The nurse would visit regularly at first when he was so active, it's one time a week, but as his condition got worse, she came more frequently until eventually she was coming every single day to check in on my dad. We had a CNA that would at first just kind of introduce herself to my dad, but as his health declined, as he couldn't walk, as he was bedbound, more and more frequently she would come out to help take care of his needs. All too often as a hospice nurse, I see families just simply waiting too long to get a loved one on hospice. And some I realize, are holding out hopes for miracles that never come. Some are afraid that hospice means giving up, when the opposite is true. It's not about giving up, it's about making the best of the situation. Others think that hospice only needs to get involved when their loved one is in their final days. If your loved one has come to the point that medical treatment isn't working, and the situations are getting worse, it's time to consider what's coming next. If you have a terminal diagnosis, know that it's just a matter of time. Please ask your physician about hospice care. You can go out and live the fullest life you can while you're on hospice. That is what hospice providers encourage. Hospice providers will be there every step of the way, making sure you or your loved one is as comfortable as possible as your health declines. They will be there with those facing the deepest sorrow and loss. Not only my dad, but my whole family was encouraged by the hospice care he received. They were there every step of the way for my dad's last days, and my dad passed in 2021. He was less than a week shy of his 86th birthday and less than 3 weeks shy of his 58th wedding anniversary. The day before my dad lost consciousness for good, his great-granddaughter, who was 5 years old at the time, came to visit her Bebop. That was the name she gave him, and that's the name he had. And she was wonderful little girl to him, and she would visit him all the time. And at that moment, as he was realizing his life really was coming to an end, and there wasn't so much future anymore, he held her hand, or she held his. They said their goodbyes, and he told her how much he loved her, and she said how much she loved him. It was a very beautiful thing. And some people say, how could you scar such a young child like that being around death? But it hasn't scarred her at all. She has a much greater appreciation of life than we could have ever imagined her having. And she really, as much as it was sad for her to be there at the end, it was something that has helped her grow. In fact, in the months after my dad died, she would go over and visit my mom, who lives in the in-law apartment attached to our house. My granddaughter lives with us. And she would go over and comfort her, and they would cry together, and they would share memories. And it was an incredibly healing thing, I think, for my mom to have her great-granddaughter there and caring and expressing things that were hard for us adults to express. But it was a wonderful opportunity for her to share in those moments of the family. She wasn't cut out and she wasn't isolated. And I remember when I was about 4 years old, I had a brother who passed away, and I wasn't part of, and I knew everything that was going on, but I was protected from being scarred, and I ended up being cut out of all the moments of grieving and grief and it made me feel kind of separated from the rest of the family. So I'd encourage you to think about that, and just think about those beautiful moments that a child can have with someone they love dearly as life wraps up. If you have any specific questions about your health condition or the health condition of a loved one, please contact their healthcare provider, your healthcare provider, who knows and can give the best medical advice possible. We're not here to substitute for a healthcare provider. We're here just to provide additional education to help you make the best decisions possible. Until next time, let's build some beautiful sunsets together.
Hi, this is Beth. I am Pastor Chris's daughter. Please help my dad share his knowledge with others. You can start by asking questions in the comments that you would like him to answer and like this video. We really do want to make this into a supportive community, so please consider subscribing to this channel. And lastly, ring that notification bell so you are aware when we release new videos. Until next time, this is Beth with Pastor Chris RN. Let's start building those beautiful sunsets together.